Week 12 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few defense DST units I looked at this week. The first one, the New York Giants. So the Giants coming off a monster game at the Commanders in Week 11. And this week, once again, a good matchup in Week 12 versus the New England Patriots. So the Giants, as a streaming option last week, they paid off 19 points allowed, 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, a pick six, 3 fumble recoveries in that game. And now they're versus the New England Patriot team that gives up the second most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So I know this Giant team's a young defense. I know they really didn't create a lot of turnovers this season, but in last week's game at the Commanders, they won Howell early and often in that one and created tons of turnovers. So this week here versus either Mac Jones or Bailey Zapp, we'll see who's going to be the quarterback for this Patriot team. I think this Giant defense could feast once again and have a good game. And they are available in 97% of fantasy leagues. Next DSTs, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, I know they're one of the worst teams in the league, but their defense does have a good matchup coming up versus the Carolina Panthers in Week 12 coming to Tennessee. That gives up the 6th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. We saw the Panthers throw pick six to the Dallas Cowboys. Bryce Young, he got sacked 7 times in that ball game, and now it's going to be tough sledding. I think once again, even though, like I said, this Titan team, it's been a bad season for them. On Tennessee 3-7 on the season. Both teams, they've struggled this year. Carolina 1-9. But I think this Titan team at home, they could go out there and make some plays. So as a streaming option, available in 96% of fantasy leagues. And for 1 week use only, I see is a decent option this week. The next DST's the New Orleans Saints, who you could go out there actually right now and pick up off your waiver wire since they had the bye week, available in 54% of fantasy leagues. So a good matchup in Week 12 at the Atlanta Falcons division rival. Give up the 12th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And this Falcon team, going back to Desmond Ridder at quarterback, where he really couldn't do much. He didn't really put points on the board, and he turned over the football a decent amount as well. So right now, like I said, the Saints, you could go out there on your waiver wire and get, with obviously them on bye week. And I think they could have a good game versus Desmond Ridder and this Atlanta Falcon team. Ridder has had trouble throwing the football all season, turning the football over. And like I said, the Falcons are top 12 and giving up fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So I definitely give the Saints an ad this week. The next ad is the New England Patriots. So the Patriots, I know their defense has been up and down this season. For the most part, they've only maxed out 6-8 fantasy points most weeks. But Week 12, a good matchup at the Giants. They give up the most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So this week, it could be a low-scoring game between these two teams. Mid-teens, low 20s, or even lower between them. So right now, Patriots coming off a bye, going to MetLife Stadium at the Giants. I think they could get to Tommy DeVito a few times, even though Tommy DeVito, the last couple weeks, he's looked way better than what he was in that Jet game in his debut, where they were scared to have him throw the football down the field. But anyway, I think the Patriots can make a few plays. Belichick, the rumors are out there that he could be done in New England, but after a bye week, this New England team is going to come out and show something, I believe, in this one. So right now, with a good matchup and a DST available right now in 75% of fantasy leagues, I would give them an ad this week in the 5th and final defense DST unit I looked at. It's the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, last few weeks, their defense has definitely buckled down and played good football as Denver, and it's a home game for them versus the Cleveland Browns. We're going with the rookie Thompson Robinson at quarterback, who obviously really hasn't moved the football or done much. Denver, they've wrote the ship the last few weeks with big victories versus Kansas City and at the Buffalo Bills. In Week 12, I think once again they could get Thompson Robinson in this game, make a few plays, and they got the home field advantage, obviously, with the Mile High Air. So right now, while Denver's out there in tons of fantasy leagues at 78%, I would give them an ad this week. So that's a few defense DST units I look to add for Week 12 of the fantasy football season.